Well, we all thought we were going to die until recently because of the virus, and I guess it doesn't matter anymore. So, what are you worried about these days?
Um, the fact that there's nothing to go back to, like, I don't know, like maybe the economic impact is like we're not going to see it, but people have started mentioning the words debt monetization in print, like as a serious thing. They're like, it's okay, we'll just monetize the debt. It's okay, we'll just print a couple trillion. It's okay, it's all right.
Um, yeah, the whole debt issue, no one really seems too concerned about it. And
Like realistically, it's just a fuck your grandchildren kind of scenario. Like, sorry, your grandchildren are fucked. All your grandchildren are fucked.
well, yes, but at the same time, for right now, like if you think about the size of the deficits, like they're talking about in Canada, where they're saying it might be like 250 billion or something crazy,
Yeah.
and you think the actual budget of the federal government, Ottawa spends, I think, just around 300 or a little less than 300 billion per year. So it's almost like 100% of their spending normally. So in proportion, that's a huge amount. So that's got to be covered with something. Obviously, they're not going to jack up taxes to cover all that.
Yeah, they will.
But like, well, to some degree, perhaps, like you suggested, maybe they're going to try and up the GST a point, or they'll like, surely they're going to nickel and dime us in a variety of ways as best they think they can. But most of that won't fall upon the taxpayer immediately. Like there's going to be some portion that will just be bought on the market by central banks, institutional investors, or pension funds, and whatever's the difference that the market can't absorb has to have new money that prints it up to purchase all the new debt. So seems clearly that a good portion of that does need to be covered with new money, because can the market absorb $250 billion? And that's just Canada, which is a small country. California is bigger than all of Canada. The US, which is so much bigger, like what is their deficit going to be, like $6 trillion or something?
It's yeah, it's out of control. Like they're fucked.
And so all
But
that
if
money has to go into government spending, basically, which is all garbage. It's all wasted, flushed down the tubes, enriching cronies or your political friends. And
well, what's
the economic recovery is going to be extremely impaired because all that capital is going to be absorbed in that way.
what's your favorite coronavirus conspiracy?
The funniest or best or
Best. Just when I
um
say the word best, just
I've kind of ignored most of the conspiracy stuff because I've just been so focused on the stupidity in our own country, like on a domestic level, like even down to the local level of our city and province. For the
you don't want you don't.
conspiracy theory stuff, I haven't really indulged in too much of that, but the funniest is probably that it doesn't exist at all, which I've heard some people unironically uh, argue. Um,
That's beside the 5G causes it.
yeah, 5G. No,
They burned down towers. Like I can't believe it.
I mean, I don't know. I what's the funniest one you've heard?
I'm not saying funniest, but I'm saying best. The best theory is that it was intentional, but like the average, like the rule applies. Like don't attribute to malice that which can be explained by stupidity. I think it was being researched, and I think it did get out. But then again, like I don't know what happens when you eat fucking nothing but pangolins and bats for fucking dinner for a couple years. Like who knows? But that it was intentional and it was started somewhere in Wuhan, specifically close to that lab, because this there was an impending economic collapse. It was gonna come, and if you have this to lay your fucking hat on, they're not gonna come with fucking pitchforks and fucking kill you in your mansion. So the part where you just go like, because like people saw the Occupy movement and they're like, oh shit, like like we got to be careful here, like they're on to us. And so you start this pandemic that is the entire world, and you let it spread, and then you blame all economic actions or failures on the pandemic.
It's perfect.
That's a great theory.
It would be rather sophisticated and elegant from a grandmaster manipulator point of view.
It works if you don't give a fuck who dies.
Yeah,
it works great.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past the type of people who run things on this world, but I don't know, maybe it gives them too much credit to think that they would actually plan that out. Like so many things, they're so screwed up, you wonder, like, how can they be this stupid? And then it raises the question, well, maybe they're not this stupid and there was some intent behind it. Like that comes up when you look at like Middle East policy, for example, or this coronavirus stuff. But clearly, regardless of whether someone plans this as some big cover for or shield to dodge the blame associated with economic problems that are coming otherwise,
just pull the fucking trigger, get it over with, and then we'll blame the Chinese. That's why you can't retire. That's why all your savings are gone, middle class. That's why there's no more economic mobility. That's why all your businesses are failing. That's why, the whole system is fucked. And we've got to introduce this new system to kind of back it up or to like make adjustments.
Well, look at how it's worked out either way. So look at Justin Trudeau. He is basically impervious to criticism at the moment because the supplicating media is providing no challenge whatsoever. And he's even in a position where basically almost no one in the rest of the parliament is challenging him in any significant way either.
Yeah, not even the media. Like even as
his popularity is very, very high right now.
Yeah,
amazingly, it should be the opposite. Like the more you see him, the more you should
triple blackface.
Prime Minister,
that's all you should be
blackface. And
you know what I think?
That's all I can think when I think of.
No, when I see him,
those are the three funniest pictures.
Yeah,
or I guess there's four because there's
two of them at one time.
There's two or three pictures from the one incident with the turban.
Yeah,
and then there's the other two, but they are hilarious when you associate them with the leader of Canada.
Yeah,
absolutely hilarious.
What
a fool!
When I see him now, I just think about the fact that his wife probably fucked Idris Elba.
Because that's how she got coronavirus.
Yeah,
she gave it to him.
No, she didn't give it to him.
And
that's the twist. That's joke, a twist on the whole fucking thing. Because she's in fucking England doing who fucking knows what with Idris Elba in a fucking hotel room. She comes back to Canada, has the COVID, has to get locked up, and now she just stares at Justin through a fucking glass window.
No, that's the funny kind of joke that people were saying. Trudeau's like, oh, I'm staying at my house, and he's quarantined with his wife because she got sick, and he never got sick apparently, and so the joke is like, I don't think she will let him touch her at all, like, period. Do you remember the old clip from that Quebec show with Jean Gomes?
Yeah, where he kissed him, didn't he?
No, she it's this weird moment where she tells him to kiss him, and Sophie tells Justin to kiss Jean, and there's this weird exchange glance between them, and I don't know.
Are you saying that you think they fucked at some point?
I don't know. I don't want to hear about it.
It's the kind of glance.
So the funny thing,
it's the kind of glance only lovers know.
The whole idea, like, he didn't get sick because it's very likely that he's not allowed to touch her because she's repulsed by his weirdness. And I have this theory that if he was to get naked, he would look like a department store mannequin, like kind of weird and androgynous, like the way some people imagine Michael Jackson's body would look.
Like people kind. He looks like the remember Parks and
But then get this, another point in the saga. Remember the Buffalo Chronicle?
No.
So during the election, they were basically the only paper that would report on the alleged sexual assault case at that, or some kind of sexual impropriety that occurred at Justin Trudeau with his employer at that private school.
Yeah.
So the Buffalo Chronicle was the only website or paper or whatever that would report on that.
Didn't that come back to kind of just be bullshit though?
Well, it never really went anywhere. We never really found out. No one else would really kind of get into it. They were the only ones making those claims, but they're back and they said that
maybe they're like, oh, we don't have to burn any calories on this because we got photos of him in fucking blackface.
No, hang on. They're back and they said that like they've got reports or like a source tells them that Sophie and Justin are actually split up.
Oh, that, yeah.
I think they just have to maintain their marriage out of appearances.
Do you think she's gonna?
I think she's disgusted by him, and I'm disgusted by them.
Do you think she's gonna hook up with Harper's wife?
Ew.
Another well-known secret.
It's just weird. I don't want to think about these people like
another well-known secret.
Yeah, well-known secret.
Yeah. But no, I think I'm pretty sure she fucked Idris Elba.
Well, that's the joke. That is pretty funny.
Yeah. So what a fucking the guy from Rebel Meat. Like, I understand that Rebel News is well. I appreciate Rebel News for being the contrarian, anti group as a media institution.
Hear, hear.
I do think that they do good stuff and they cover stories that, although easy to kind of spin in a certain light, tend to not fit narratives and fall through cracks, but they do it in a kind of a schlocky, kind of, hard copy. Like, check out this, like Justin Trudeau, like, kicked me out of the press conference. And then you kind of go like, okay, well, I'll watch it. And he was just like, yeah, I'm going to the press conference. I'm pressed. And he's just like, no, you're not. Get out of here. And he's just like, well, why can't I just ask him some questions? He's like, get out of here. I'm going to fucking take you out of here. He's like, and this is this goon. And he's a fucking crazy goon. And he grabbed me by my arm and took me out. Like, I just wanted to ask some questions. It's just like, yeah, dude, sorry, you're not on the list because you're not going to go like, well, how long should we stay inside? You're going to go like, hey, how come there's rules for you and rules for us? Like the part where you're like, hey guys, don't, I know it's Easter, but like, don't go visit your fucking grandparents because, it might be the last time you fucking see it. And it might be your fault, but I'm going to go see mine. Well, just so you know, and I'm going to leave this province and go to that other province.
Well, so the media thing is interesting, and putting aside the question of like, practically speaking, how would you decide like what kind of, who goes in there, or whatever. I mean, it should be relatively fair, and I think there is a problem with the whole media thing right now, where if you ask any challenging questions, you lose access. That's a problem in itself. So it kind of encourages self-censorship or more pablum eating. But also you've got the promise of these big Justin bucks for the media companies, like the big media bailout. It doesn't sound like that much money because it's Canada and we're small, but it's hundreds of millions of dollars for businesses that aren't really all that big anymore.
They'll pay your staff. They'll pay your staff and your judge.
These are small companies, and they, relatively speaking, and they wield a certain degree of influence. In some respect, of course, losing more and more influence all the time. But
because McLean
help control the narrative.
McLean sets the pace of public opinion. Fucking rag.
but you know, they're part of the whole propaganda war, I guess. And when you're promising big money, like, it's just unreasonable to expect any critical, challenging journalism or news coverage of the powers that be. Especially, I mean, it's not even counting CBC, which obviously they have a bias, but all the other ones too. Same problem. There's basically money up for grabs, but if they say the wrong thing, then the committee might decide, oh, they're not a legitimate news source.
Yeah, judged by your peers. It's only CBC that gets to decide whether you're an actual journalist or not. Like, that's who gets appointed to this journalist commission.
Well, yeah, and they had, you know, they've got like public sector union guys on it and stuff. Just, I guess part of the inner circle in a lot of ways, like people who are kind of friendly with each other, and their main priority wouldn't necessarily be what we would want it to be.
Yeah. Have you seen the new, I haven't watched CBC in a long time, but they got this, they took a page from Fox. And
they didn't.
Yeah, they did. They got this super hot fucking anchor chick.
No,
now.
they didn't.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. Where the fuck is she?
They don't. They get like the homeliest people. No, that's so photoshopped.
No, that's her.
No, have you seen her like live on TV?
Yeah, I have.
Nah, I don't know.
And she had way nicer hair than this photo.
Oh no, her skin's not good. Her teeth are kind of gnarly.
Oh, come on.
We're talking about
really, and it's a step down from fucking Peter Mansbridge. Like,
Peter Mansbridge was a sexy man.
Yeah.
The true epitome of mankind.
Yeah, I don't know.
CBC is just ugly people on TV.
There's a lot of community college folks. I
don't think so. I bet you they come from like more elite circles in.
No way.
I bet you they do.
If
like
they
maybe
were
not their junior writers and stuff, but
if they had elite circles, they wouldn't fucking end up in Canada, dude. They'd go get real money elsewhere.
Okay, that's true, but
if you have any talent, connection, ability, money, you don't stay in Canada. And there's a reason for it.
But I think like the reason you would go to CBC isn't purely your motivation for journalism. It's I think it's very much a social networking or social circle issue where like a lot of people end up going from CBC to work in the government at some level or some in a liberal party position or something like that. So I think there's just a lot of that goes on.
The fucking the fucking pig trough.
It's despicable.
Yeah, it's how you get in line for the pig trough.
Are you do you think the Conservative Party of Canada still exists?
No, it's dead. It's dead.
I haven't heard from them in a long time.
Maybe there's just like a hologram Scheer nowadays. I haven't seen a photo of him. I bet he's put on weight.
Scheer was out there the other day with his hard-hitting criticisms.
Just speaking facts.
He like just showed up and he's like, there's been some technical difficulties. The Liberals haven't sent out the money quick enough.
Oh yeah.
It's like, oh my God, technical difficulties.
Yeah. Yeah, I just want to take a look at him because there's something about him that tells me he's been fucking in like the basement wearing fucking sweatpants for the past 3 months, and he's fucking done nothing but eat milkshakes for dinner. He's just like, oh, it's all over.
Oh, I can't stand the guy.
Oh, look at that fucking face.
He's got a quite unpleasant, smug face.
The Germans have a word for people like him.
What is it?
Backpfeifengeist.
What's it mean?
Well, I've heard it translated two ways, and I'm sure someone will fucking correct me, but both a punchable face or a face in need of a fist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, look at those. There's something about his lips. Like, I don't even. Oh, fucking look at him.
He's a very unlikable person. Like,
Yeah, he looks like a guy who just farted and he's trying to wait to see if anyone smells it.
yeah, he's a disgusting guy.
Yeah, he's just like
Absolutely putrid human being.
Speaking of farts, did you see the Joe Biden interview?
Yeah, that was awkward.
It was fucking
I'm
weird.
looking forward to a Joe Biden versus Trump debate. Is that going to happen?
No.
Like, is there going to be a debate?
They will never let him on the stage with Trump. He will get fucking eviscerated.
As if they have to. I need my entertainment.
Trump is going to go backstage, fucking mainline a fucking 50, maybe 80 milligrams of fucking Adderall. Go out there and fucking slaughter him. Joe's going to be sitting there like, and he's like, well, which one is it, Joe? Did you take your fucking...
Joe's sometimes good at some meaningless babble that, like, sounds okay to...
No, it doesn't, dude.
The average voter.
Dude,
He can whip out some platitudes and slogans.
No, but he can't get through 2 sentences without fucking Joe Mencha kicking in. And he just like puts words where they shouldn't be. And he's like, well, the problem with the establishment is dishwasher. And then you got...
That's why I need a debate. I want to laugh.
He's going to get...
It's almost sick to like put someone up on stage as a spectacle for my perverse amusement at watching him.
Well, it's either this or you got to fucking...
degenerate in front of me.
What was that fucking Schwarzenegger movie where if you're sentenced to death, you got to fucking die live on TV?
Running Man.
Running Man, yeah. Basically, you either got to put Joe out there as a fucking lamb tied to a fucking cross for the monster to come along and eat, or you got to start fucking Running Manning this shit because people want blood.
I like those kinds of movies with like weird situations or I don't know, unrealistic situations like that.
Absurdists.
Where people have to deal with crazy stuff. Like, remember that movie Cube? That was a Canadian movie.
Yeah.
It was probably the only good Canadian movie ever made.
What about Existence?
I don't think I've seen that.
Yeah.
Canada is so awful. Like, why is our cultural output so bad?
I don't know why. So, do you think, is there any other country in the world that has the equivalent to CanCon?
That's a good question, and I don't know. I assume there's got to be some...
Do you think the French...
multitude of varieties of program for that?
Let's just pick the G8.
I don't know.
Okay, so of the G8 countries, how many of them, just whoever's kind of listening to this or trying to think, do you think the French government sits there and goes, wait a second, French culture, art, music, movies, etc., is so weak and so shitty, we're going to force anybody who wants a broadcasting license to play or show or print 20% of what they do. It has to be Canadian.
Well, on the one hand, I'd think, yeah, probably a lot of governments do have that. But at the same time, no, probably a lot of them don't have something like CanCon because, yeah, like you say, it's an admission. I mean, they don't say it like the way you said it, but it's an admission that your media is trash because it can't compete. Well, you're saying it has to be protected because it's so awful and people aren't going to watch it unless you forcibly restrict their options that would be substituted for that.
Maybe it's like Civilization. We live beside the greatest cultural exporter that has ever existed. Like right next to it. To the point where we don't actually have an identity.
Yeah, we're almost indistinguishable in a lot of ways.
Well, we get upset about things that happen in America like it happened to us. When people talk, I've caught myself doing it. When people talk about the government, sometimes they mean the U.S. government.
Yep, definitely true. Well, it is. I mean, clearly they're an extremely important relationship for us. It's the biggest empire ever in the history of the world and is right now, of course, by far the most powerful country. It's the biggest consumer in the world. It's
God willing, it will be forever.
And culturally important. In fact, I would say a lot of this, even the social justice kind of leftist religious mentality has been exported from the U.S.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something in a lot of ways we've picked up from them.
Do you think it's interesting to see Black Lives Matter protests in Canada, Sweden, Japan?
Yes.
Do you think that Canadians think that in casual conversation think that Canadian cops are militarized, brutal, and savage as American cops?
No, it appears from what I've observed that most people, if they think there's some issues with Canadian cops, like in general, they are less big of an issue than for the American cops.
How do you think the English get around without having their cops have guns?
They don't. I remember talking to this kid from England, and I'm like, so what's the deal with the cops? And he says they get stabbed all the time.
Have you seen the Twitter photos of them doing sweeps and like turning up like butter knives? And they're like, yeah, another good haul of getting these weapons off the street.
Those are always so funny.
Like they gotta no, but they're real. They're fucking real. Somebody had a fucking rusted up steak knife that was clearly like in the tall grass for at least a season or two. And they're just like, yeah, I got this fucking good thing a kid would have fucking stabbed us all with this fucking weapon. You can't buy the knife manufacturers are modifying.
Yeah,
knives.
they're banning points, aren't they?
Yeah.
Points on kitchen knives. Like, no one needs a point on a kitchen knife.
Well,
which is BS.
Maybe. I mean, there's a reason.
You got to have a point on your kitchen knives.
Yeah, like they can't all be fucking cleavers.
Sometimes you're using it to like open a bag or something. Like you got to have the point. Period. Non-negotiable.
Yeah. How about fuck you? How about that? How about just that? How about just fuck you?
Britain. Speaking of British exports, like is all the stupid how much stuff has Britain exported that we've got to deal with? They were at the cutting edge of like putting cameras everywhere.
Oh, the Commonwealth. I remember back in like the early 2000s hearing about how they were going to give people speeding tickets based on Bluetooth scanning. They were just like, yeah, we're going to put receivers on all the fucking highways. And if you get from A to B faster than you could legally get from A to B, we're going to just fucking mail you a ticket.
Which is hilarious.
Yeah.
And they would do it.
Citizen. No, Britain passed the craziest fucking law possible. I saw there was a French news article today that 2 kids were arrested. I don't know what they were charged with. Probably their obscenity law or their hate speech law or something like that, for doing the Floyd challenge, where it was just these 2 kids. One kid sat on his fucking neck with his knee, and they're just like, yeah, see, I'm not dead.
And they were charged as like an offense for what they did, because that's funny because at the rally or whatever they did, like the BLM or Antifa rally at the yesterday here in town, I talked to someone who was observing it because they were very curious, as was I, but I was unable to go scope it out. They were saying they were doing that, like they were acting it out, like this weird theater. They'd have people, like different people would do it in front of the cops. Like,
really?
It's just kind of weird.
That is weird. Because like all I'm thinking about is like old timey fucking knights where they have the little stick puppets and they're like, or fucking Mr. Dress Up like Finnegan, like fucking they're like, oh hello, it's me, the cops. And he kneels on the other one.
But think there, so you're getting prosecuted in the UK. They might have just been trolling or whatever.
You caused the way the law breaks down is you caused anxiety.
But here they're doing it as a show of support or like to troll
what
law enforcement or something. It's just all like,
dude, the cops were marching. I don't understand.
Yeah, I think they were kind of hoping for a little more action, but I think it was pretty uneventful overall at the one on Wednesday here in town.
Yeah.
And the cops didn't really do anything. It was all pretty
There was no bricks thrown.
There was no bricks thrown. There was
We're
no
on your
cops beating people or anything.
We're on your side.
And so I think to try and get something interesting going, they started acting out.
What?
Like
You think
the
it was
George-
antagonistic?
I don't know. I think they were trolling the cops, I guess.
It's probably just a couple shitheads.
But no, apparently like tons of people were doing it.
Tell that shithead to get a fucking photo next time if he wants to kind of say. He's like, check it out. They're all fucking.
Well, I might go check out the one on Sunday just out of curiosity.
There's another one?
There's been 2 already.
Oh, okay.
And it's mostly very unhealthy looking whiteys.
Yeah, they got a lot of crimes to pay for. Blood libel.
But I mean, they look physically unhealthy.
It's uncomfortable to observe them.
They look malnourished or severely overly nourished.
He's like the most malnourished fat person you've ever seen.
I don't know.
And look, the COVID's been hard on all of us. How fucking dare you?
I think it has driven like half the people crazy. I was driven crazy. Now I'm starting to feel better because I feel 100% vindicated.
Yeah. Well, you're not.
The numbers are in. The argument's over. That's it.
You're you're gonna show me the bodies?
Yeah, we got some bodies, but
They tested 4,000 people over the past couple days, and they're like, yeah, 50 new cases.
oh
And I was
my
like,
god.
oh my god.
Imperial College model predicted 2 million dead in the United States.
If there was justice,
Can you imagine?
if there was justice in this world, instead of protesting for police brutality, how about we protest that fucking guy? That fucking useless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Neil Ferguson.
Yeah. I urge everyone to take to the streets and burn Neil Ferguson in effigy.
I wouldn't mind bringing it more local. Like, I wouldn't mind if our chief medical officer
Yeah.
was denounced and protested. I think she's a crank. She's a nag. She's annoying. Every time she's on TV.
Are you calling her a Karen? It's the new
She
slur.
is the worst Karen ever.
The new slur.
Yeah, she is a major virus Karen. And what could be worse than a Karen with basically the full authority of the state behind her commands?
Oh, sounds like a nice, safe society. No one will ever get hurt again. I just want to sign a waiver. That's what I want. I want to sign a fucking waiver. Where I just go, all right, I understand. I'll go about my business. If I die, it's on me. And they're like, what about the people you infect? And I was like, well, they all signed waivers. So
you signed a waiver by getting up in the morning and being alive. Like, you signed a waiver getting on the road, driving around, that you accepted the risks of life. That, like, everything we do has some element of risk in it. Some things are actually quite dangerous, specifically driving, which we do all the time. And you signed a waiver just by participating in the activity. So same thing with life. It's just as any normal bad influenza season. You accept the risk of life, which is maybe getting sick, and maybe in the ultimate worst case scenario, you fucking die from it. But deal with it or don't leave your house.
yeah. I think if someone's really shit baked and the media's whipped them up into such a fervor with just like panic porn, if they want to stay home, I don't think that's ground for dismissal. I think businesses have.
I think it is. It's a resignation.
Yeah.
It's a resignation. If you don't want to work, if you don't want to go into work and fulfill your responsibilities that you're being paid for just because of some general unease or some tiny risk, it's like I can't come to work because I might get hit by a car on my walk to the office. It's a ridiculous thing to say. It's like, okay, in other words, you quit.
Okay, but that's not the scenario that I'm talking about. I'm saying that the government came by and took everybody's keys. because people are dying. They're like fucking 40% of us are going to get hit by cars in the next 3 months. So they show up and they take everybody's keys. And they're like, well, they didn't get my backup set, so I can still go into the office and work. And they're like, fuck. I don't want to get, everybody's really worried about some fucking guy in England, so we're all going to get hit by cars. I'm just going to work from home because I got a computer and what I do is actually not that hard. So I'm just going to do that. And they're like, you're fired. No, they've been abused by the government and the media, and you should have a small amount of sympathy for them. I'm not saying a lot, but
maybe I would have if they didn't already take it way too far. And now a lot of these people have just become blind to the whole issue. Like, I can't believe that. I mean, people have a big problem admitting they were ever wrong, but especially on this, when the ask was so big.
Yeah.
How
do they walk this back?
Yeah, exactly. How do you walk this back? So they've become
so
annoying and so like self-reinforcing with their bad ideas.
But think about,
I don't know if I have any sympathy for them anymore.
Well, they're just gonna call into question the Swedish data and the models, and then just be like, "Look at all the lives we saved. Look at all the people that could have died. We have a different strain."
And yeah, that's always what the argument's going to be. But
let me protect you from your enemies.
Yeah, we saved you. You're alive right now because of what we did.
If we didn't do that,
you would be dead if we didn't do it.
All your grandmothers would be dead. Dead. They would drown in their own lung fluids in the fucking streets. Yeah. No, it's unprovable.
There's no the way do-overs. They like it.
There's no do-overs here. That's why I think that conspiracy theory is the best thing I've ever heard. Everybody's in on it. It's not that hard.
Well, they all love a convenient crisis that they can blame things on. Like, remember, George Bush had 9/11 happen, and there was immediate economic consequences, and they were kind of like in the aftermath of the previous bubble popping. But George Bush was like, we were attacked by terrorists.
What do you want us to do?
And he did pretty well.
Freedom.
So we're fighting for freedom. Freedom isn't free.
Fighting. You go to the best thing.
Freedom is not free. That was one of their slogans back then.
Yeah. No, my favorite slogan to come out of the whole fucking thing, Rumsfeld. You go to war with the army you got. It was like the greatest phrase uttered by any kind of politician or appointee.
I don't know. It seems trite.
No, it's awesome.
Why is it not trite?
Well, anybody's like, hey Clayton, how come you didn't fucking...
It's like, I go for a drive in the car I've got.
Yeah. No, how come you didn't fucking get up today and put on a fucking tie when you went to work and iron your slacks? And you're like, well, you just kind of go to war with the army you got. Like, I don't know. I thought it was the best. What are you going to do? It's just, that's too much of a lowbrow fucking response. Like if you put Steve Bannon up there, he's just going to be like, what are you going to do? And Rumsfeld's like, you go to war with the army.
Rumsfeld's just like, whatever. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
He didn't care.
He's just hoping not to get
he doesn't care.
He's just hoping not to get a shoe thrown at his head.
Wasn't Rumsfeld predicting like the whole invasion would cost like $800 million or something?
He will be back before fucking lunch. There was a big theory that I don't know. I'm not that much of a conspiracy, but it was basically the idea was they had a list as part of this whole thing. They're like, we're going to take out Iraq, we're going to take out Iran, we're going to take out Libya, we're going to take out Syria.
That wasn't a conspiracy. That was in a document, and that was a scheme that specific.
It was 8 countries.
Intellectuals. No, I don't know. It was.
They were
Iraq, Iran, Syria, Libya.
And
another African. Am I missing one?
Another African country. Well, they said Afghanistan in there. Syria.
I don't recall, but off the top of my head, but Yeah, I don't even know if that was a conspiracy theory. That was just what people thought. In fact,
And
one of the first things,
all 8 of those countries have been molested since the 2001. Like,
I think it was Wolfowitz in his book. He said, basically the first question in the meeting after 9/11 is like, when are we going to go after Iraq?
Yeah.
And these were all intellectuals who were kind of part of that PNAC not committee, but
cabal,
I guess you could call it. And they wrote that stuff, and they were in influential positions in the administration. And what's his name? General was it Wesley Clark who talked about it? And he talked about how like they had this, like he was just blown away that they had this scheme after 9/11 to go after 5 countries or
8,
whatever. Well, I don't know if it was 8.
I heard 8.
I can't remember. It was a few, and they've gone after a bunch of them already. They don't like Iran, but Iran is very hard to deal with.
What are they?
Like if you, from an imperial point of view, Iran is the trickiest conquest, perhaps.
Disagree.
Well, I don't know. I don't know anything.
Overwhelming power. Like you can't.
Oh, you can blow it up.
Yeah.
But you can't, like, actually conquering and occupying it would probably be much harder than even previous efforts have been. And that's why they don't occupy anymore. Libya, they just do it with proxies now.
Yeah. Maybe
it's like Metal Gear Solid 4 predicted.
Yeah.
You got mercenaries and proxy
proxy
fighters.
Wars. Proxy wars.
War
is ubiquitous.
That is the modern era.
Have you met many Iranians here in Canada?
Yes.
Aren't they like some of the best people?
I tend to like them, and almost all of them are
based.
Yeah, based, like very.
They're amazing.
Yeah, actually, the more I think about it, the more.
I've not met an Iranian that I disliked. I don't know what it is. It's just their people. A lot of them talk about, their parents having grown up or experienced the 70s before the Shah, and that kind of like stuck with them, and they kind of got out.
Yeah, almost all of them I've talked about have some beef because they were persecuted like their parents, or they left Iran because of the way they were treated for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So they're pretty good when it comes to like the danger of government power in some respect.
Do you think that certain nations have a culture of the dialectic?
What do you mean by that?
So in Greece, and to a lesser extent in Rome, it was a pastime to practice the dialectic, to sit around like a bunch of fucking libertarians and argue.
Oh, sure. Like ancient Greece or France, I've understood, may not be like that as much nowadays, but they had that phase.
Yeah.
And,
well, I don't know. England has what? Speaker's Corner?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Now I think I can't really think of a country that's characterized that way, but I'm not the most sophisticated person.
The only videos I've seen of it is mostly just upset Jamaicans.
What, in Speaker's Corner?
In England, yeah.
I see a lot of Christians and Muslims going down there to debate each other.
That's cool.
I think that's cool.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a funny concept, or I don't know.
Yeah, I think Iran had a history of pastime dialectic.
Perhaps. I can't comment.
You know what place did?
No.
Somalia.
I don't know.
Somalia had a huge, like, that's what the gentleman would do. That's what you did. This is before the Civil War. You would just hang out with your boys and drink, chew fucking jaw. And
but are you just chatting, or are you having a dialectic go down?
Dialectic all day, bro. You were a man about the scene if you were a good orator.
So do we have any great Somali philosophers?
No.
All this history, what is their
No, they didn't really have a chance. So basically, they kicked out the British, and then they had basically one generation of people before there was a civil war.
So I'm looking forward to our first Somali philosopher who
How about
writes an anti-state creed.
Black Hawk Down? Easy, easy. The greatest thing about Black Hawk Down soundtrack, banger, amazing. I'll listen to it.
I haven't seen that movie in forever.
There's a lot of Somalis in Minnesota.
Yes,
and
one of the cops who stood around watching Mr. George Floyd get the neck pressure squeeze move was a Somali cop. They have a bunch of them. Remember, what was it, a year or two ago when that Australian woman came up on the cop car in Minneapolis, I believe.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, he just blasted her.
Oh yeah.
And he got in trouble. He was prosecuted and fired. Maybe. Well, you always got to check back way later because there's a lot of appeals and they often still end up getting money.
Yeah.
Like the guy. So do you remember the case of Daniel Shaver?
That was the Florida guy, 26, shot in Arizona.
He was the guy who was a pest exterminator or something, and he had a pellet gun for shooting rats or whatever, and somebody called the cops because they saw him.
Yeah,
and he was in that hotel or something.
And they made him play fucking
weird like contradictory commands about crawling on the ground or moving or not moving. The guy just wasted him. So that guy was prosecuted, acquitted, fired, appealed. I could have the finer details wrong, but if I'm not mistaken, he got his job back just long enough to quit for like PTSD and get a $2,500 a month pension. Nice. And last I heard he was bankrupt, but and it's because, like I said right before that, you always got to check a few months or a few years later. So there was a case in Toronto recently where there was some RCMP or no Toronto Police Force, if I'm not mistaken. He was it's basically been an 11-year case where he got in trouble because he was helping some gangs or drug lords, like with human trafficking and covering up some kidnapping, like pretty serious stuff. And some like abuse victims like came to him for help, and he just kind of like came to him for help, and they just kind of, shuffled it aside, and he never reported or anything. So basically just covering up and facilitating bad stuff. And so 11-year case, they finally were able to fire him. And there's already been a criminal trial and everything. So they're finally able to fire him. But he just appealed. So he still gets paid.
Do you think that
11 years helping, and he was helping human traffickers.
Do you think that cops should carry their own liability?
I think that would be a huge dramatic change in the way the world works, and maybe they should.
Or and I'd like to,
you should be able to sue a police officer personally.
Agreed.
For like a civil rights abuse.
Yeah.
In addition to suing the department.
Yeah, it shouldn't just be but I want my own investigators, and I don't want you to like the union.
That's the thing. They get so many privileges for like carrying out the government's will or whatever, qualified immunity or however you couch the terms.
People blame the unions for that, not the state. They're just like, oh, the state had to give in to the unions. They're like, oh, so wait, you get to review evidence before you make a statement? Is that true? Why do you get to look at your body cam footage before you make a statement officially? Why do you get to review evidence before this? This sounds a little weird. Why do you get to do that? And they're like, oh, it's the unions. The unions made me do it. So that my story lines up with what actually happened.
Government unions are definitely... Unionized government workers are a huge problem in life.
Okay, but what I'm saying is that it's substance and shadow. Like, yeah, unions are bad, but the state is even worse. Private cops, private courts, private insurance. Easy. Like someone's figured this out for you, or at least move towards that direction.
Well, imagine, do you think Canada would be better or worse if the public sector was not allowed to unionize?
There's fundamental economic principles that you can answer that question with, but I don't know.
I think we'd be treated better. The public sector would be smaller, and it would be easier to get rid of losers.
Well,
not that we can count on the government to like get rid of all the losers, but I mean, even in the state, there's some cases where they'd probably fire some people if they couldn't,
maybe,
or if they weren't facing difficulties in that process.
Well, it's almost like getting your finger cut off when you have a giant tick attached to you. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, even though you would take the unions away from these public sector jobs, it wouldn't matter because you couldn't have any fucking competition. People of Calgary or Alberta, I challenge you to get someone to plow your street. I dare you.
Yes, and
I
that
dare
is
you.
the fundamental issue, but you can pile other things on top of that make it worse still. So I think
yeah, like I'm just saying, it's like having your finger cut off and you got a fucking tick.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's just like, well, you're probably gonna get fucking Lyme disease, go crazy and die, but right now we're worried about a fucking finger. Like, realistically, the fact that they can't compete, like, you just, it's sort of like there's no, it's pretty obvious fucking metaphor. Like, it only fucking matters if they have some kind of fucking competition. Like, they have a monopoly, and it, you know, they're just siphoning more money off of the fucking state. And the state's just going to siphon more money off of us. Until there's actual competition, it's a moot fucking question.
So, of course, there's a lot of talk about the police these days. Have you heard that there's issues with the police? You've probably heard something about them.
I want cops don't get to investigate themselves.
Like, they talk about it on the news once in a while.
Yeah, they're just like stay inside. Now they're talking about go out and fucking protest.
But competition is the main thing. And think of how wonderful it could be if, like, my neighborhood has a special adjustment on the property taxes.
No.
So that they can support certain community initiatives that are decided by, like, the community association or whatever. It's like, it's tiny. I think it's less than $50 a year.
Okay.
But they do it for, like, special landscaping and stuff. Okay. I don't know, whatever. But why couldn't I handle my neighborhood security that way? And if the security is trash or they treat the customers poorly, then we get a new security company. Well, competition might be okay.
You're talking about you want your own private army now. That's what you're saying to me. That's all I hear.
So
all I hear is you want to get a goon to shoot your escaped child slave. You fucking anarchist.
There's some rumors that the Hells Angels are in the neighborhood somewhere.
Yeah.
And actually that is a protection racket that might be better than the other protection racket.
I would argue that they are better than having a cop in the neighborhood or even fucking security officers.
Well, having a cop like just there does kind of discourage crime right there.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it does. Like right there. It's
right
just,
there?
Yeah. Down the street doesn't necessarily matter, but I think it's, if it was widespread knowledge that there was scary dudes in your neighborhood, I think that might be beneficial to the protection of your neighborhood, unless of course it attracts further violence and stuff. But
I tends not to.
The Hells Angels,
well,
maybe they're keeping the neighborhood safe. Did you know the story of Al Capone when he was sitting in the his establishment and somebody did a drive-by and shot the place up and gave out money to all the collateral damage, all the people who got shot in the building?
Jesus.
That's a nice thing to do,
I guess.
Take some responsibility for attracting problems.
Well, rule one, if money's flowing, spread it around. It's one of the keys to power.
Whereas one of the problems with the police is if they hurt you, they might actually charge you.
Yeah, there was the one where the guy got fucked up by the cops and then they arrested him in the ICU. They're like, for resisting arrest, and he's like, he's fucking recovering. It's called the intensive care unit. He's being monitored 24/7. He has an attending doctor. I think he can wait. He's like, get this fucking IV out of this fucking guy's arm. He's a scumbag. He's got to go straight to jail. And it's like, he needs medication every 2 hours. And it's like, no, he's a fucking scumbag criminal. So, you know, we're talking about people generally have a contempt for the masses, the poor, the underclass, the rabble that they don't consider themselves part of. And they look at these, you know, miscreants, these and just scumbags, like everybody who wears a foam hat, anybody who, you know, if you've ever watched a monster truck rally, like, sorry, you're in this group, probably. They're unruly, they're maladjusted. And these kinds of things that happen in order to maintain a semi-lawful society. That this is basically how the sausage gets made. And you may not like the look or the smell, but you know, this is just how it is. If you want the protection of the state, if you want law and order, if you want, you know, if you don't want your neighborhood overrun by homeless people, if you don't want your fucking car broken into,
you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is just the way things are, and we're every once in a while get a peek behind the curtain, and we see, yeah, this is every day. These are the kind of, they're like, oh, I just deal with scumbags. I just deal with fucking shitheads. And all they do is fucking puke blood on me and OD on fentanyl. And it's like a weird hellish job. Like they told me that I was gonna go out there and I was gonna save some fucking babies. I was gonna get blowjobs from people because they would think I was a hero. I could fucking, and people would give me high fives when I walk down the street, you know, and I would be taught to protect and serve, and like be of value to my community, to the people I live around, and keep them safe from shitheads, because I know bad people are out there. So they spend a couple years, they go through training, they do all this stuff, they get their post, and then they put them on a fucking bicycle with a fucking helmet and a gun. Like, and they're like, what are you gonna do? And you're like, well, I'm just gonna bike around the city and be a cop. I'm just gonna get on my bicycle and bike around and write tickets. And they're like, okay, that's cool. What are you gonna do in like 3 years when you're no longer doing that shit? And they're like, well, I think I'm gonna sit in a car and point a laser beam at people and ruin their fucking day. I'm gonna go shit on productive members of society for $250 a ticket. And then I'm going to look through their car. I'm going to trick them. I'm going to lie to them. I'm going to lie to these people and see if I can't find some weed in their car or whatever, because they've actually turned around and begun to hate the people that they're supposed to help. Because all day, every day, all you do is shit on fucking people and they shit on you back. Because you're a fucking thug. You're not helping anybody. Yeah, you get to be like, oh fuck, there's a domestic disturbance next door. Like, oh man, someone should go check on that and go check it out. And this guy gets fucking dispatched from the other side of fucking town to go and knock on this fucking door. And, you know, who knows what he's gonna fucking see. Apparently domestic situations are where cops die the most, so they're already fucking amped up. They go out there, they're like, fuck, I'm gonna get shot. There's gonna be a drunk piece of shit in there beating this fucking woman, or a drunk piece of shit woman beating a dude. And they're going to pull out a fucking gun and kill me. And then they get back in their car and they go write a speeding ticket. Or hassle someone. Or like, they're like, oh, check out the dregs of society. You know, these fucking shitheads that you were supposed to, like, you know, put in jail. Well, you can't. You're not allowed to. Because it's pointless. It's like, we have sympathy for social workers because they burn out. And so imagine we gave every social worker a gun. How long would that make it? So I think in a way we're seeing how the sausage gets made. And we don't like it. There's fundamental problems to the system. And we're asking people to do some weird stuff. And we're all lying to one another about how it, like, what the fucking point of it is. And the short answer is, we can't fix it. So why not make it more fair? So just get rid of the fucking cops, private security, private courts, private insurance.
Well, it's basically all it is. Like, even if on the law and order element, and there are certainly antisocial forces in society that create problems for the productive and more civilized people, you can say, who live peacefully with their fellow people. Yeah, sure, all that's got to be done. You got to deal with the bad stuff. It's just the government is an inefficient way to do it, and even the government cops aren't efficient. So I don't know, like, if I follow you, if I understand what you're arguing there from that perspective, I don't think it matters much. I don't think it really changes anything.
It is more of an empathetic plea. I'm not advocating anything one way or another, but I think that we got to understand, you know, look, they may think they're here to help, but we're actually, they just can't.
I'm pretty much out of empathy for government employees.
Okay.
I've become bitter and resentful.
Do you think here's a weird one. Do you think it's a sign of someone's character, the level of contempt for the pleb they have?
Depends what you mean by pleb. Because when I hear the word pleb, I feel like that's someone who's not really all that.
A plebeian, your average person, the mob, a citizen.
Yeah, I think the mob is generally hostile to liberty, which is important value of mine. So,
well, like,
but you know, like the average person, I don't necessarily blame them, but I look down on a lot of the ideas that they have, and I look down at them sometimes for the reasons they hold some of those ideas, even if they're holding them in good faith.
Okay. Do you? Because like they're like the phrase "people are stupid," which, you know, it's cute when you're fucking some shithead fucking 16-year-old, but I don't think that view on people is compatible with libertarianism.
Well, it certainly could be.
It's
that might be a reason to have libertarianism, because for all people's flaws, weaknesses, our frailties, for the most part, we manage to kind of make it work. And most people are decent enough. They might not be great people, but they're not horrible people. They're pretty good. They're not saints, but again, most people can make it work. And I guess that's different than looking down upon them for having some ideas that we would say are objectionable. Do you think people need to take responsibility if they're the plebs and they have bad ideas. And if they, like, there's no sin to be ignorant of something. But maybe if you're uninformed and you're pushing a certain opinion about something that's harmful to people, especially when it comes to political opinions that all deal with matters of force and taking things from some people and allocating them to others, maybe that's less forgivable.
Most of the people that I guess it's because people will talk about what the state should do, and they're like, you know what, the government needs to do X, Y, or Z. They're like, man, the government needs to tax these fucking corporations, or like, what do you need all that stuff for? Give me some, you know, hey, government, go in there and take some of his stuff for me. But they'll turn around and say like, oh, we got to have these rules because people are stupid. They'll fucking kill themselves. And most people, you know, your gut reaction is just be like, good, let them fucking die. You know, the social Darwinist kind of approach. And you're like, let them fucking die. And it's like, some people go like, well, we need them alive so they can vote for the liberals or something. You know, like, they have this contemptuous view of man. And I think it goes part and parcel with using the state to enforce order for the public good. But I also think that libertarian kind of philosophy necessitates a certain amount of respect and assumptions of capabilities out of your fellow humans.
Well, I don't think I was putting it coherently before, but libertarianism as a pure kind of ethical theory doesn't really need to go to the next step to consider like what you need or expect from people, or what it might encourage you to think about people.
Did you forget that we live in a society?
But
we live in a society.
It requires a certain faith or trust in our fellow man, which I think is mostly warranted because society works at all for all its problems. So yeah, it's like the question, are we good enough for liberty? And maybe not, but I think part of being a libertarian, kind of that eureka moment, or having at least a strong leaning in that direction, requires at least a minimum threshold of confidence in other people to kind of figure it out, use their freedom responsibly enough that the whole world doesn't fall apart. And it seems borne out in history where every time we kind of give people back a little bit of freedom in some area, which doesn't happen all that often, but it seems to work out okay because again, for all their flaws and failings, the average pleb is probably better at figuring out their situation and the solutions for it with cooperating with their neighbors and such than the bureaucrats and politicians will be.
And, you know, libertarian enclavism. Like, everything past the mountain is ours.
I want people to kind of define their communities however they want, and I just want it decentralized. Like, some people are kind of opposed in principle to any kind of collective thing whatsoever.
But I have defined my community. It's by the Calgary fucking city limits, and Nenchi's our leader.
Well, you can define it that way according to political boundaries or whatever, or you can define it some other way.
Well, if you keep talking like that, he's going to come over and eat your dinner.
There's not enough food in my entire neighborhood to feed Nenchi. He probably eats 30,000 calories a day.
Do you think that's the last thing we're allowed to judge people on?
Oh yeah, you're not allowed to say stuff like that at all anymore. It's like the fat joke has become taboo, or the insult
No,
over people's weight.
I think we can still do that. I mean, somebody,
So what can't we do?
No, I'm like we're allowed to do that. We can't say anything else. You know, we can't mention, you know, suspicions.
I don't even think we're allowed to do that anymore. Do you remember a few years ago when the NDP was running Alberta, and our health minister? Do you remember who our health minister was?
Yeah, wasn't she about 300 pounds?
She was big boned.
She was a big skinned girl.
Big boned. And she was banning like menthol cigarettes.
Yeah,
and
flavored tobacco ruins children.
Some opposition politician or something said, "Oh, it's pretty rich having this, like, you know, obese person." He didn't use those words. He kind of just implied the irony without kind of saying it outright. But he said, "Isn't it ironic that like this person is talking to us about like healthy lifestyles and banning menthol cigarettes?"
There's some,
and he wasn't allowed to say it. It seemed pretty harmless to me, and I like when politicians insult each other. And he didn't. He got razzed out by the whatchamacallit, by the media, by his own party.
sometimes Google just returns the mother load. It speaks human sometimes. I go, fat European health minister.
Yeah, it's the Belgian.
Pulls up the wiki for Maggie to block. She must have hyperthyroidism or something. What's going on?
Yeah,
with her?
I think she looks like there's one of those trashy shows on TLC, and it's like
My
900-pound sisters. It's one of those 600-pound life.
My 600-pound life.
But it's like 900-pound sisters or something. So it's like these two sisters, and combined they're pretty big. And that Belgian health minister looks a lot like they used to look, or they do look, or whatever.
She's got something going on.
Politicians are ugly.
How do you think
their ugliness on the outside reflects how they are on the inside? And being in politics is,
if she doesn't
like,
have
soothes their narcissism that they couldn't satisfy with like an acting career.
If she didn't have hypothyroidism or some kind of glandular issue, she definitely has something going on. Like somebody got bullied, or
only in the government,
yeah,
would that be possible?
Like no one, like, so this person was appointed. Do you understand? Like,
makes perfect sense. That's the only way it could happen.
Appointed, and they're like, well, what? Yeah, fucking English. Oh, she weighs 20 stones. Like, that doesn't mean anything.
No, stones is a great measure. We should bring it back.
Fuck you.
It's fucking awesome. A stone, I believe, is 15 pounds. So it's like,
well, it's because people,
you're 12 stone, or you got a nice tight 10 stone body. Or no, wait, is that fat?
Yeah, it's 150 pounds. Yeah, you have to do fucking math. Why? Because
no, you get used to it.
Sense.
It would be as intuitive as feet are to us now.
If you asked someone how tall they were and they said 83 centimeters, would you fucking lay them out?
No, I wouldn't like that person. I've never liked that. It always seems very inhumane.
I weigh 12 stone and I'm 83 centimeters tall.
No, like, if you're 12 stones, you're 6'2" or whatever your height is. But yeah.
No, stone is weight. Who does centimeters for fucking height measurements? Only the Japanese.
Yeah, they like blood types and centimeters.
So, have you seen photos of, because we always have to shit on local politics like at least once. Has he been in the has anyone gotten a photo of him?
Who?
Recently?
Who?
Nancy?
Yeah, there's a picture of him like every day. Cuz he does a stupid, totally unnecessary like COVID announcement.
Oh, does he come out of his house like he's the
he
fucking
gets his disgusting,
like he's the emperor,
wretched appearance on TV like every day.
Extraordinary pride at Calgary's anti-racism protest, but urges caution amidst COVID-19.
Oh my God!
Second wave, people, here it comes.
People are outside.
Oh man, you're gonna all your grandmothers are dead. They're fucking dead. Like they don't even know it yet, but your Grammy is fucking done for come September, October. We're gonna have to do this all over again.
George Floyd was had COVID, and the cops were just trying to save grandma.
Well, it's justified if you take these.
On lockdown fanatic principles, it is justified.
He's gotta
It
go.
would be. That's what the lockdown fanatics have been begging for. They want the knee on everyone's throat who dares to go outside.
They've got to let this one go. They don't have the moral high ground anymore.
Well, the whole thing just goes to show they aren't as afraid of COVID as they thought they were.
What do you think saves more lives? COVID lockdowns or marches to spread awareness?
Both increase the number of deaths.
Why? Because are you saying it makes you want to kill people?
No,
No.
it just the lockdown increases deaths, and marches calling for solutions that don't address real problems, and get distracted in
Whatever
like psychological issues or what's in people's hearts and stuff. It's pointless. So none of this stuff's ever going to be solved with this current approach to the problem.
It's because your demands are not simple. Most times when people march and get things done, they have a single demand, or maybe two or three, that are all interrelated. But there's not a fucking commandment list of 10 or 12 or 15 fucking things that the people and the government must do. Normally when people march and actually get things done, they want one fucking thing. And you can explain it in a fucking sentence. You can, you don't.
Yeah, and a lot of this stuff can't be explained because sometimes you'll hear some specific ideas about issues to do with cops, but when they focus on the whole racial aspect, it's not even clear what you're supposed to do about that. Like, how do you get your claws in people's brains? They say, oh, people need to be retrained, or we need to have more people from the community to enforce the laws in that community.
Well,
and
I don't think
none of that stuff matters.
I don't think cops should investigate cops. You know that.
Oh, well, they have their separate departments.
No,
but
they don't. They're all cops.
No.
ACERT,
right.
Do you think
quote separate, unquote, but
do you think ACERT hires police brutality victims? No. People with some or like you get a bonus.
No, it's an independent investigatory body.
How about we pay him fucking $10,000 for every cop they convict? How about that? And if you got sticks, you need carrots. Fucking get them hungry to fucking.
I don't know. I just want to cut their budget.
No.
But
there's
but
no.
What are you supposed to do? It's like, oh, you have to understand the plight of the oppressed. Well, what does that mean exactly, and what does it mean to understand it? And they say, well, you can't possibly understand it, so we can't explain it to you. Well, that doesn't get you anywhere, so that's pointless. And then things like, oh, we need to have a conversation about race, or we need to come to terms with race or something. No one has any idea what any of that means. So just cut the police budget. Don't make it all psychology and looking into people's hearts and stuff. Like, all that is total dead ends. And the left, or the new left back in the 60s, they talked more about that, like community policing. And some of the far left talks about that now. And actually, I think that's generally a good idea.
I agree.
But I think a lot of the maybe somewhat more moderate protesters don't really know what they think the solution is. And that's why they talk about all that kind of wishy-washy.
Do you think we need a return to gangs, like street gangs?
No, I don't like gangs.
No?
Don't like street gangs.
Well, I don't know. We need a gang to save us from that gang.
I like mall cops. Rent-a-cops.
I like Blackwater. We got a lot of unemployed war vets, and I'm sure they could use a good job for a good reason.
A lot of them wind up on the streets in Minneapolis.
Keeping me safe.
With a badge and a gun.
Keeping me safe from the fucking state. I'll pay you a living wage to keep these goons off my lawn.
They're walking around Minneapolis like it's downtown Baghdad.